All right, welcome back to another episode of the BK Lounge podcast. Today's a pretty special episode because we have our first guest on, and kind of what a guest is he? He's a 3-time All-American, 2-time NCAA finalist, Big 12 champion. He's got a 108-21 career record in wrestling, and that being said, Bryce Meredith, welcome to the podcast.
What's up, guys? Thank you.
Glad to have you here.
First guest. I didn't even really realize.
First guest, yeah. So just to kind of get right into the questions, I want to ask you a couple from Tim Ferriss. He's the author of Tribe of Mentors, and he interviews a ton of people at the top of their field, asking them various questions of, how they got to where they are. And so I'm going to kind of start with some of those. The first one, do you read much? We kind of talked about this before we went live. What books or book do you recommend the most? Like, what would you give as a gift the most?
Yeah, so actually this Christmas I even bought a handful of Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life.
Oh, yeah.
He's really the guy that kind of got me going super hard into psychology and really how we carry ourselves and how we need to bear more responsibility as humans. So he kind of got me started into it. And that came from podcasts like we talked about where for me, reading was never a thing. I did not like reading. I've never read books, to be honest. But I got into listening. Mm-hmm. And listening is kind of, you get these conversations, but you also are learning about these people that they read so many books. They're 100%. Just like, book this, book that.
That's kind of how you have to get all of your knowledge these days, because that's where the best information is.
Or even when they have the author on and you're like,
exactly.
I need to know more about
having
this.
an author, on a video or a podcast really helps promote their books.
100%.
Because knowing the author makes you want to read their books.
Yeah, and so from there, now I bought Jonathan Haidt's book, and I started that just yesterday, so I'm very new into it. And Jonathan Haidt is also a psychologist, and the book is called The Happiness Hypothesis.
Right.
And it's about finding truth in ancient wisdom. And that really speaks a lot to me because, even spiritually, I just think that we can find a lot of truth in the metaphorical stories.
Absolutely.
So it kind of aligns with that. And like Peterson talks about and other people talk about a lot, it's there's a reason why these stories are still around.
Right.
Because they've lasted through time.
Because they've impacted time.
And, it's kind of funny, the more we learn about psychologists and the stories really align very similar.
Right.
Just different little touches to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
The Bible and the Quran and whatever it is. So,
exactly.
Even with
cool.
ancient Greece, I nanny for 2 6th grade twin girls, and we had to write an essay and go over an essay, and it was about how the Greek gods were modeled after humans with their flaws, and whether or not it was real, it still helped them learn and teach values and pass them down. It's all very relatable.
Yeah,
I never
100%.
thought about it like that.
Jordan Peterson's books are really interesting because I haven't read any of them, but I've heard people talk about how he has a big emphasis on young men taking on a lot more responsibility.
Yeah.
And, his premise is kind of you have to be selfish and better yourself because in turn you will better society.
Yeah.
And I think that's really interesting to think about.
Yeah, 100%. It's he always talks about
glasses here that are rattling.
Yeah. The damn trains, bro.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
That's why it's rattling, 100%.
All the way over here.
Yeah. Yeah, well, he talks about a lot about lowering the bar. And
right.
I think this really changed my mindset on a lot of things because I think naturally as athletes and everything, we set the bar so high where it's I'm going to be a national champ. I'm going to go undefeated. I'm going to be a world champion. And I always say it's always good to set lofty goals.
Right.
But you also need to just humble yourself to the daily tasks of who you need to be to maybe become that later on. So for me, he talks about change yourself before you try to change the world.
Exactly.
And I think that always aligns with athletes, with everybody. Humble yourself to making your bed. Humble yourself to just reading a book.
Right.
Right? You're not, for me, I always think about it you're not that powerful. You're not that important, which you are important, but
that's kind of the hard truth.
Yeah, you have to just realize
you're not that special.
Exactly.
You're special to your parents.
Sometimes when we're out and we'll feel self-conscious because someone else might have done something, and then we think to ourselves, that person doesn't care about us enough. We shouldn't care about it. But that's what you were talking about is a big premise of what we believe in is you have to set these small goals, like you said, waking up, making your bed, exercising, but you need to celebrate those small goals too, because you can't get too hard on yourself. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to achieve those lofty goals that you have.
And it doesn't make achieving fun either.
Exactly. If you're so hard on yourself all the time.
And that's the problem with a lot of people. a lot of athletes, a lot of people, they believe that they have to take on the world. They have to do it every day. And if they're not doing it, then they're failing.
Exactly.
And it's like, that's not the key, right? Even if you look at the most powerful people in the world, they're only powerful in their one avenue, really, right? Like the CEO of Twitter. He's just really good at what he did. He created something. He can't just sit there and take on every other problem of the world, and that's why they're running into problems with, because they're getting so pulled into the political and censorship and stuff, and it kind of aligns with that, the same idea is like, good luck trying to take on everything.
Exactly.
You're just not going.
Well, and people give CEOs like that a lot of credit for all the things that have come from Twitter, but he's not responsible for all of the content on Twitter and all of the other things.
Yeah.
He's just responsible for a place that people can share their content and their ideas.
Yeah.
And so he, like you said, it's just that one niche that people really are impactful in.
Yeah.
Well, and I think another thing that's really important about this too is kind of what we talked about on our last podcast, where we really feel like we found more of a single, not like necessarily just one specific niche, or you know what I mean?
It's kind of like it's like we were trying to produce the whole tree when we should just be producing a branch with a couple smaller branches off of it.
But from everything you're saying just right there, what I get is exactly what we were feeling. Life begins when you realize you are in control.
Exactly.
And it's up to you.
And it's cool because everything's a coin, right? Mm-hmm. So the one side is you are in total control of everything that you have and everything they're going to do. And then on the other side, you have no control of how the world's going to go.
Right.
Yeah.
Whatever. And Jonathan Haidt talks about this. It's your mind is one part of it is you, the rider, and the other one is the elephant. So you're trying to ride an elephant. That's how your mind is. And the elephant will listen. It'll go left. It'll go right. It'll stop when you tell it to. Up until the point that the elephant's desires are more important to it than yours, and then good luck controlling that elephant, right? So it's like this idea that, and for me, I've kind of realized that I think we have a whole bunch of elephants in our head, right? It's a committee of elephants. It's a committee of people, us. It's not just one. It's just a committee of us, and they have to sit down and have meetings, and they all have different desires. They all have different ambitions,
right?
And naturally, you just hit crossroads with it, and you can't be too hard on yourself for something that, like, you just desired it and you went and you did something that you knew you shouldn't have done. Like, you need to give yourself grace, but then also bring it back and try to form the best committee that you possibly can. And I think that's kind of what it is, because it's not just me and my mind. It's like me and like 100 minds.
Exactly.
In different times of the year, different minds come out, different just days, right?
Yeah,
like,
seasons.
Yeah, you have like 2 days where you just feel like you can take on like you're cleaning your house, you're doing your gym, you're going to school, you're doing all this, and then like the next week you feel like you can't even get out of bed on the day.
So
it's
up and down.
It's crazy. So it's, for me, there's that a saying where it's like you're the average of the 5 people you hang out with the most.
That's
we talk about that a lot.
One of my
and
favorite quotes.
I think that can be even taken into your mind. So it's like, put 5 of you that you actually want to be.
Exactly.
And try to like fight that battle. But yeah, the whole 5 person that you hang out with that's
the first time I heard that, I was like, oh.
Yeah, when you start to think about it, when you first realize it, you really take a look at the people around you.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. But I think that's kind of a good segue into our next question. When you are feeling down and unmotivated, what do you do? Like, what's a remedy to kind of pick your spirits up and get that motivation back?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's a lot of, I look at it, it's not all about me. Because in wrestling, especially because it's a individual sport, it's so selfish, right? What do I have to do to become the best wrestler? What am I doing to become a better wrestler?
Right.
I need to do this. I need to do that. And then when I get unmotivated and I get down and I get hard on myself, I've realized that everybody that's putting so much into me, there's so many people, so many, I don't like saying fans because I just don't really like that word, but there's so many like supporters.
Yeah.
There's so much of my family. There's so much money been involved in this that like I got to be prideful enough to not want to let people down.
It's kind of unfair for people to invest so much money in you, and then if you're lazy or you don't want to do anything, it's not fair to those people.
It's really not.
You know?
Yeah, that's exactly how I feel. I mean, I did not go to college and wrestle, but through being in a small town and my dad dying, and my mom getting cancer, I just feel like I owe so much to everybody that supported me. Like every time I wanted to just school's tough. I just want to go home. I was like, I have just been given way too much to just let it all go. And there's always somebody that has it worse. And when you're really down, that's really hard to be, conscious of, because you're down and you're thinking, well, this all sucks and poor me, but then like picking yourself up, that's one of the things that motivates me the most. I've talked about this guy a bunch. He's an old coach of mine, and he's my mom's coworker, and I babysat for him, but he taught our weight training class early before school, Mr. McFadden. And Cody, I love you. I miss you. You're the best. But just riding my bike up a hill, if I was tired, I was like, oh my God, if McFadden drove past and saw you walking your bike up the hill.
Yeah, exactly.
What would he think? Just simple things like that. So it's nice to know. Yeah.
That's a good point, though, where like I also find my motivation in the times of my life is when I go, oh, poor me. I have to wake up at 6 a.m. to try to achieve a dream.
Right.
Why would I ever start feeling bad for myself when there's people that, like you said, you've had your parents pass and go through sicknesses and stuff. Like, my problems so far in my life have been so freaking minimal that how dare I complain?
Yeah, I mean, even me, I still feel that way. I'm like, oh, it could be so much worse, and I've been given so much in turn. And one thing that I saw recently was start replacing with I have to with I get to, which is what everything you just said reminded me of. Like, I get to chase this dream at 6 a.m. Like, how lucky is that I get to walk out the door, use my legs, things like that. Yeah. Which, I mean, it's really easy to take for granted. It is for anybody, and it seems like it's not that special. Not like I'm not discounting disabilities at all whatsoever, but so many people can walk, and so it doesn't seem like something that you should be that grateful for. But
it's definitely something we take for granted, and
especially getting older. I'm like, holy cow, things can happen.
Well, one of the biggest things I realize is when I get sick, my first mindset is, wow, I should really appreciate when I'm healthy, because this feels terrible.
Yeah.
And so it's crazy. It's kind of a double-edged sword, because you become grateful when things like that happen, but a lot of the times it takes something pretty significant to make you start feeling gratitude.
Yeah. It's I mean, that's the same thing, right? Be careful to start playing, like, if you want to start playing the victim card, because eventually you're going to be the top of that victim, so now you're the victimizer of all them, because there's always worse. There's always worse. So no matter what, be careful playing that card. And then, like you said, a lot of people, right? I think this one's really opened my eyes, because I always go, I wish I was more artistic. I wish I could draw better. I wish I could do this. And then I saw this thing where the majority of artistic people that make it to the top had a tragic event happen before they were 10 years old. So it's like, oh, you really want to wish for that, because you never know what's actually creating these things behind people, or these ideas, inspiration, or whatever. So be careful what you wish for.
Yeah, definitely. Like, comedians, one thing I've noticed is, like, the funniest people I know have had some of the darkest past, like. But
the thing about that is, those are some of the best people to be around, because those are the people that can turn those negative things into something that, not everything should be joked about, but they can turn it into something lighter rather than just focusing on the detriment that they went through.
Yeah, this is totally morbid and awful, but during Cards Against Humanity, whenever the dead parents card gets played and people look at me and they're like, I'm like, it's funny, it's okay. Like, it's, it's like, I've even played that one before,
Exactly.
It's...
Well, that's just you being a very good sport, though.
Right.
Yeah,
and just accepting what you're going through.
Yeah, I think that's what we're talking about, like bearing the responsibility of the shittiness of the world.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And like you're doing that in such a, amazing way. Like, it's very brave, and I'm, in awe to you or towards that, because like when you get to do that, and when you can just bear it and understand that the world is dark and live through it, then like the world can be like a good place for you.
You can start appreciating the good things so much more.
Yeah.
Well, one thing I've always noticed is people would come up to me and, I just don't know how you did it. I don't know how you could do it. And I'm sure people say that to you too. Yeah. But when you don't have another choice.
Yeah.
Like, you have to get through it. You have to, there's no other option.
Right.
And it will, like, you'll realize that when those kind of things happen to you, or I'm sure that happens with losses, like, you pick yourself up and you move on, and once you experience that, it'll be totally fine, and you'll see too.
Yeah, and not to, bring up any hard feelings, but like, I'm sure there are a lot of kids that look to you after you lost 2 national champions and say, I don't think I could ever go through that, because they know how bad you want it, because they want it just as bad.
Yeah.
And so talk on that a little bit about how you went through that. And
yeah, totally. So it's funny because kids will text me and they go, I know it's way less, but I lost in the state championships. And it broke my heart. And I go, it's not way less because that's where you are.
It's all relative.
That's where you are. That's where that is your pinnacle. That's where it's going to put you at a 10 if you win.
That's the most important thing in their life at this time.
At this moment, right? So and I'm always like, no, it is just as important. Just because you think it's bigger, which it is obviously, but like yours is as important to you as anyone.
Exactly.
And I start with that, and then I kind of go into this fact where it's the old Chinese man poem, where I'll try to make it fast, but it's where this guy, his horse dies. And then everybody comes from the village and says, oh, I'm so sorry to hear about your horse. He says, maybe. And then the next day, 7 wild horses come into his corral. So, oh, that's so awesome. I'm so glad to hear about that. Maybe.
Yeah.
The next day, his son breaks his leg trying to break one of the horses. So sorry to hear about your son. Maybe. And then the next day, the government comes in, and they're taking young men for war. And they skip over him because he has a broken leg. Oh, that's so incredible. Your son didn't have to go to war. Maybe. And it's just this idea that we never know the consequences of good fortune, and we never know the consequences of bad fortune. And I have to tell myself that a lot when I lost again, especially my senior year, because it's done there. I can't do it again. After my sophomore year, I was like, kind of sad, but I got 2 more years.
Especially with the senior year that you have, I think you went 33-2 the entire year.
Yeah, so I had 1 loss only to that kid.
Exactly.
Yeah, so,
exactly.
and I was a number 1 seed, which was very uncommon for me.
You had just beaten Dean Heil in Cheyenne.
Yeah.
I mean, probably one of the biggest high moments of your life.
For sure. That weekend, I beat the number 1 kid in the country, the number 2, and the number 4.
Exactly.
So it was like, or something like that.
Yeah, right.
So it was just a huge weekend. And then like 2 weeks later, I wrestled the number 1 kid at 133. And that was like one of the biggest matches college wrestling's had in a long time. It was a really cool event. And now somebody else did it. A 25-pounder bumped up to a 33-pounder, number 1 versus number 1 just last weekend.
Right.
So, that's where I got to realize that I impacted the sport in a so much larger way than just becoming a national champion, right? Like, there's a lot of national champions in the world that haven't left any impact on anything.
mean, same with like a lot of the Heisman winners. There's a lot of Heisman winners you've never even heard of, Like
the majority.
Exactly.
But the ones that do, the ones that are like, I like to think of it like the misfits, the ones that are kind of the crazy ones.
Yeah.
Like those are the type of people that right on the fringe of the idea of like chaos and order.
Exactly.
And they're right on the edge of that. And I try to like, I don't like want to be like, oh, that's what I was for wrestling.
I mean, you're definitely not a misfit, but you were definitely, I would say your senior year, you were the face of college wrestling.
Yeah, it's like, because I do crazy stuff with my hair. I wear a leg sleeve, that kind of stuff. So like I put myself on the fringe, and I sat there and I danced between the chaos and the order. And you have to be careful, right? If you go way too far off into the chaos, then you're just an idiot.
Exactly.
You're an idiot.
It's
but
distasteful.
If you stay in the middle, the system works for you. It's just normal for you. So you're not going to push or elevate a sport in any direction. So I kind of, anytime I do a clinic or whatever, I tell the kids, like, be the outsider. Be not the normal person. And like a misfit's not the right word, but that's kind of the idea. Kind of like a fun misfit.
Exactly.
And just dance on the line of chaos and order and push the freaking limits.
Yeah.
In an honorable way.
Yeah.
Not just being an idiot.
Right.
Yeah, like reckless.
Yeah. Yeah, that's another thing. I one of my favorite quotes or like ideas is like, there's a difference between being risky and reckless.
Right.
And it's normally really hard to see from the outsider, but like if you really are trying to do, if you're doing crazy stuff, when you're being risky and when you're being reckless.
Yeah.
And I always, because I'll do crazy stuff, I'll like backflip on snowboards and do this. People are like, oh, that's crazy. And I'm like, no, like I'm in control.
Right.
I'm being risky. I'm just being brave. I'm not being just reckless. I'm not just, it's the idea of like driving drunk. Like that's reckless. That's not being risky.
Well, and you're not
being an idiot.
You're not doing anything that like for sure know I can't do this.
Yes.
All the things are within your wheelhouse.
Exactly. I'm not like Travis Rice trying to do a quadruple backflip off a 40
jumping out of planes without parachutes, stuff like that's reckless.
Yeah, just people doing stupid stuff, But for them, they understand that they are capable of doing that.
That's all of that is within his realm.
I know.
And within his wheelhouse,
So it's cool. We got to just just got to be risky and brave.
But I like what you said about the guy and his horse, because I'm sure you know Colin Cowherd. I don't know if people either love him or hate him.
Yeah, I'm a LeBron fan. So
he has a quote where he says, "Nothing is ever as good as it seems, and nothing is ever as bad as it seems." He says, you have to keep that balance in life and keep your, the highs are going to be high, but you can't let it get too much and get in your head. And same with the lows. For sure. So it's really interesting.
I mean, you said that exactly, where you were like, it's bad, but you're going to get through it.
Yeah.
Like with speaking about, the terrible things that have happened.
Right.
It's the same idea.
Well, and I mean, that's one of the best feelings is when I look back to a time when I was really struggling and I overcame it. Like, I did it. There were days where I was like you said earlier, I can't get out of bed today. Yeah. I can't. It doesn't make it. I just can't do it. Mm-hmm. But I look back and each time you get a little bit stronger and a little bit more brave and a little bit
you can take on a
wiser.
Little bit more.
Yeah, each and every single time. And that's, I think, what it is all about is just, the choices you make and the stepping stones and just looking back and seeing how everything played out, which is what is so neat. I mean, like, I was going to go to Northwest College, which is just 22 miles from Cody, but two of my best friends sat me down and they were like, Mackenzie, you need to get out. And Northwest College is great for some kids from Cody, whether they just get an associate's or they get an associate's and go on to UW or wherever. Mm-hmm. But it wouldn't have been productive for me. I would have stayed home a lot. I probably would have skipped a lot more class. And so if it weren't for, my dad dying because he was an alcoholic, I wouldn't have been able to leave him because I was the only one that would check on him. Right. So there was no way I could have been 6 hours from him because I couldn't just drive to his house when he wouldn't answer his phone,
And that's one of those things, like what you talked about with your loss. It's that silver lining that comes out of it.
Yeah.
And yes, going back, you would never wish that your dad would die.
No, and nothing ever amounts to it. But I wouldn't have met you.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be sitting here right now.
You wouldn't have come to Laramie. At least not for the first couple years.
No, probably not. Yeah.
There's definitely a silver lining in everything, and I think a really strong person is able to recognize that.
Well, and that's some of the things I just want to be able to give out from this podcast, and that's why we want to have people like you on here, because I am very stubborn, and if somebody has a lesson, I generally will have to learn it for myself. I will not learn from them.
Learn the hard way. I'm the same way.
I will have to definitely learn the hard way, but struggling, these are the kinds of things that I wish I could have heard. Be the resource you wish you Googled for, or write the article you wish you could find, when you were in that time of need. And so I think that this is really important to be talked about, especially for those kids in high school that are talking to you and they don't think that they're on the same level as you, because it's all relevant, like Bryce said.
And it goes back to Jordan Peterson, where he talks about... I just totally lost my train of thought. Remind me of what you just said.
Maybe the most reliable source.
Well, yeah, and creating the source that you were looking for. Jordan Peterson talks about, that's taking on the responsibility. Yep. Us sitting here talking about our problems and what we have done to overcome them and stuff. Yes, it's good for us, but we're doing it to be that resource and trying to, bear that cross so that the people in college can have it a little bit easier than we had it. You know?
Or somebody that's going through a hard time.
Exactly.
Whatever their thoughts are, whatever they're thinking.
Right.
Just knowing from other people, like, no two experiences will ever be the same. Yeah. But just knowing, like, maybe somebody lost their mom and they're having a hard time, but they hear this and they see that it does get better and there is light at the end of the tunnel. Because when you're, like we said, when you're in that down, it's hard to pull yourself out. Like, 100%. You have to realize you're in control, but hopefully by hearing other people's messages, or I always think about this, kids that gave up in sports or academics where you have no idea where it could take you. Like, I'm sure there were a ton of times you wanted to quit. Oh, yeah. And you were just like, I'm sick of this, I'm done, but you stuck through it. Yeah. And so this is hopefully going to be a resource for kids that think, I could go on, but what if we would have missed out on everything that you did? Yep. If you would have chose to quit, we not only, like, this podcast here, but the state of Wyoming, It just,
the kids that you inspired to start wrestling, none of that would have happened.
I mean, I see on your Instagram all the time, you're always at those clinics, and I see the little kids posing with you, and we covered that night in Story Gym, and just watching the entire gym going crazy. And like
after even all the kids in line to get your autograph, just to get a picture with you, to be able to talk to you for 5 seconds, you know, it's really incredible, and I think that plays into kind of the butterfly effect. Yeah, like if you would have stopped, there would be so many kids in the state that wouldn't be as inspired as they are now. Yep. You know?
Yeah, it's this idea that you're not that far away from 100,000 people.
Exactly.
Like, I know 100, you know 100, they know 100, bam. Next thing you know, you have 100,000 people sitting there that could have had, you know, you could have said one thing to somebody and it could have affected them. Right. Right? Or you could say something really bad or be very poor to somebody.
Yeah, I was just going to say, on the flip side, it could really...
Well, and I think that's why it's really important for people that understand that, like us, to connect, because maybe someone in your audience needs something that we're offering. Maybe someone in our audience needs something that you're offering.
100%.
You just don't know, so you need to be putting that positivity out there and doing it as much as you can to help that one person that needs it.
I always tell kids, like, make sure you humble yourself to anybody in the world. Like a bum on the street, that's probably rude to say, even say it like that. Yeah. But a bum on the street can teach you something.
100%. Because
they know and have been through something that they can teach you something in life. And I think I try to tell kids that, especially with sports, school, whatever, because when we're young, we think that we have everything figured out.
Oh, yeah.
Like, nobody can tell us anything.
No,
whatever.
Thinking back to just high school.
The first 18 years, you thought you knew everything. You didn't need to learn anything. And
now I look back and I'm like...
The older you get, it's honestly like, you know, I really don't know that much.
Know nothing.
Yeah, honestly.
It's like the only thing that I have figured out is that I'll never have anything figured out.
And I think that's why it's really important to be a lifelong learner. Yeah. And, you know, read and listen to podcasts and...
and talk to people.
Exactly.
That is the biggest thing. Like, because I knew Bryce knew you, Bryce, the Bryces.
Yeah.
From Cheyenne and growing up together. And so I was like, I saw your name on a list in our class. Yep. And I said, Bryce, you should text him and see if he wants to be in a group together. Because I didn't know any other names. Yeah. So just, you know, taking that risk and talking to somebody.
Had you never done that, we might not be doing this podcast right now. And if we're doing this podcast and it's helping a person in need, that wouldn't have happened. You know?
Just one person. That's all we need. Like,
exactly.
Yeah.
If this podcast helps one person, if what you say helps one person, it's all worth it.
It's all worth it.
Yeah.
And I seriously try to have conversations with anybody and everybody all the time.
Right.
Because I travel a lot. When I sit on an airplane, I try to talk to somebody next to me for at least a little bit, right? Like, you can tell, like, sometimes they have headphones on, you don't want to annoy them, but like, I'm always like, we're bored, we're sitting here, let's learn something.
Exactly.
And I've had some incredible conversations with people.
Absolutely.
When I was in New York City, Zach Hall and I, you know, a good friend of mine, we made it a thing that every time we got on the subway, we were going to talk to somebody. And at first, they're just like,
because everybody's so tunnel vision.
Are you talking to me?
Well,
are you
especially
being
in bigger
nice?
cities.
Are you being kind? Because in New York City, you just do your own thing.
Oh, yeah.
But here, it's completely normal.
Yeah, it is very normal.
Yeah.
But it was like, it's just incredible how much we can learn from conversations. And I push people, too. Like, if I know somebody that makes a lot of money, right, you're always told never ask them how much money they make. And I don't ever just come out directly and ask them how much money they make, but I try to make them step me towards how they got to that point, why they're at that point, and how that much money is even coming into their lives. And I think sometimes it kind of throws people off. They're kind of like, why are you asking me these questions? But as I keep digging, they're like, oh, he just wants to learn. Because that's my biggest pet peeve. Why can't we ask the most successful people those questions?
How they got successful.
How they got there. You're kind of like, oh, don't do it, don't be rude, don't be this. I'm like, I'm 22 years old and I have no freaking clue what I want to do with my life in the long run of things. I'm going to ask these people that are successful.
And why would they not want to help you and better society as a whole in general? And there's a stigma, especially with content creators and social media influencers, where people kind of have a bitter taste in their mouth if they promote a product or if they're making money via whatever their career path is. And I think that's ridiculous, because all that is people following their passion and figuring out how to make a career out of it.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite quotes is, I think it was Casey Neistat, I'm sure you know him, but he says, find out what your passion is and figure out how to make money doing it.
Yes.
Because then you can do it forever.
Passionate, learn how to monetize it, expand.
Exactly. Yeah. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, and that's what I try to do with wrestling, you know? And it throws people off sometimes, and because normally wrestling has been this very cheap blue-collar sport, where it's like, if you have knowledge, give it back for free. Right. Everything's supposed to be free in wrestling. And then the same people that say everything should be free are always the ones that are tweeting, I wish wrestlers made more money.
Yeah.
And I go, I don't know if you think how economics works, but money has to be dumped into something for the people that are at the top to get paid. Why do NFL players get paid millions of dollars? Because people pay $500 for one game.
Exactly.
One game. And there's, what, like 80,000 people in a stadium?
Exactly. I mean,
that's how they make millions.
Right.
It's not because it's just some rich guy paying them.
No. Well, it's the same thing along the lines of support your friends' businesses the way, like, if you were just a customer, not just a friend, like, not saying, like, hey, Bryce, I've got a friend that would really love to learn stuff from you. Like, no. Me, if I had somebody like that, I would say, like, I would love, like, I'm not going to ask you for a deal. I'm not going to ask you for a discount because I want to support you. There's nothing worse than when people come up to me or Bryce and they're like, could you help us with some social media stuff?
And don't want to pay.
And I'm like, we worked for free with the athletics department for so long, and not to be rude or be like, no, you can't afford us. There, sometimes we help out here and there, but
our
we
time is
know
valuable.
what our worth is.
Yeah.
It's opportunity cost.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Me doing these things, I need to get money. Because if I'm not getting money from you, I need to go do something that's either going to set me up to make money later or make money now.
Well, and the people that are following you, would they rather see you doing what you're doing now, entrepreneurship, traveling the world, doing these clinics, or working just random jobs just to make ends meet?
Exactly.
They want you to do what you're doing
wrestling.
now. Exactly.
Like, the way we get paid is a lot of that. Like, it's got to be a lot from just the consumers giving us, buying our, our time, our knowledge, our gear, or whatever. And it's like, if you guys want these pro wrestlers, if you want us to just be continuing to be around, like you said, and us doing cool stuff, it takes money.
Right.
Because if not, I'm going to have to go get a job.
Exactly.
I have a degree, and I'm going to go get a job.
You're not going to be able to produce the content or the merchandise that you are now.
I'm not going to do anything.
Exactly.
I'm going to throw it all. I'm going to throw the towel in.
Exactly.
Whatever.
Because at the end of the day, you have to take care of number one. You have to take care of your family. And, you a lot of times you'll sacrifice being happy to do that.
Yeah. And it's like, and that's the other thing. It's like, I'm not going to become a millionaire.
No.
So don't think I'm just sitting here chasing money. You know what I mean? I'm just chasing enough to have a living in what I want to do and what I love to do.
Right.
And it's getting better. It really is. Like, the wrestling community is understanding that it's a little bit more of a business, and that's how things have to come in and out. But
how much do you pay for
still lacking
football camps and all those other kinds of camps? Like, there's no reason that you shouldn't be making money too off of these things.
And people just have no idea that if they don't put the money into these organizations, they're not going to be around. They think that, so many people think content, information, knowledge should all be free, and it's not. Even on YouTube, when you watch free YouTube videos, it's not free because there's ads on there. People are making money through you watching it.
Sam Harris was talking about it a little bit, where he's making it that his podcast costs money, and he thinks that a lot of other people couldn't do that because we've tapped into the mind so much of that we believe that all this stuff should be free,
right? And
it's like, yeah, to a point, right? But people's knowledge, people that can tell you things that you have never learned about, these people that, a psychologist. He spent 20 years studying social psychology.
Does he really want to give all that information away for free?
No, nothing's free in this world.
Like,
even when we read books, and we always want to share what we're learning in the books and stuff, I asked Bryce the other day, I was like, are we allowed to really talk about you know what I mean? I'm not naive or anything like that,
but you think about when you
well, what are they going to make money? Or I want to just give them, I guess what we need to figure out is that perfectly fine line where you give them just enough where they want to go and buy the book, because I don't want to take somebody's hard work, like you just said.
But you think about Tim Ferriss, he interviewed 100+ people, and that's their knowledge, but he made money from his book. It's taking that knowledge and interpreting it for your audience and how to make it relevant to your, kind of ecosystem. And there's value in that. Monetary value in that. Yeah. For sure.
Yeah, it's funny. I've tweeted ideas that are mostly from Jordan Peterson. And people will be like, oh, this is Jordan Peterson. You're stealing his knowledge. You're doing this. And I'm just like, no, I just read.
You're just spreading knowledge.
I just read, and I'm helping these kids out that would have never read the book. I'm not stealing.
No, you're not claiming it as
your own. I'm not claiming it. Yeah, that's the problem, right? Like, I was like, yo, I'm not saying that was... It's not like I manifested all this in my own head.
Exactly.
But everything that we have is from somebody else. It's from a book, it's from a person, it's from whatever. So
no original ideas
no
anymore.
original ideas.
And it's not a bad thing either.
Yeah.
But
it's just taking...
Peterson got in trouble for that too. They were just like, "Oh, you're just giving us things that we've already known." He's like, "Well, I'm putting it in a new way that people like."
Well, and because he's so popular, it's becoming relevant again.
Exactly.
And so you know, as long as you're not taking credit for someone else's work, you should be spreading as much knowledge as you possibly can
to everybody,
no matter who it's from.
To everybody.
Yeah, that's super important. One question I really want to ask you is, in your profession, in your field, and that could be wrestling, entrepreneurship, business in general, what are some bad recommendations or bad advice that you hear?
Man, I kind of talked about the people setting lofty goals.
Right.
So
that stigma.
Yeah, that it's just like every coach is just like, you want to be a national champ. You want to be a national champ. You want to be a national champ. I'm like, yeah, that's good. But like, what does he do today? If I watched his practice, he was a bum. He was laying around. He doesn't want to be a national champ.
Yeah.
He's got to wake up every day and become just a better version of himself.
Right.
And then by that, you become a national champ. Like, for me, I would get like that sometimes. I'd be like, man, I got to win nationals. I got to win nationals. And then it would just start coming over me, and the weight of it would just crush me. Then I'd be like, that's not the right idea. The right idea is when you wake up at 6 a.m. and you go in for practice, people are kind of being lazy and stuff. Be not lazy.
Yeah.
Be the one that's excited to be there. Be passionate about this 1 hour that you get in the morning, and then the 3 hours that you have to do in the afternoon.
Right.
But like, be thankful that you have those, and just take it day by day. So, for me, that's a little bit, but at the same time, I think like you guys were talking about building a tree, and you guys thought you should do the whole thing. You need to sit down, understand what tree you're trying to build,
right,
and then go reverse from there.
Well, you know, Tag Lane from Central.
Yeah.
When my senior season of basketball, he always said, like, if we were down, he says, "How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. You know, you have to chip away. You can't look at this elephant that you have to eat and think, oh my gosh, I will never be able to do this.
Yeah.
You just have to take it step by step and do the little things that matter to get you to that point.
Yeah.
One thing I noticed once when we were filming for one of your guys' practices and we were making a video, I don't know what we were doing.
It was probably for the Cheyenne duel.
Yeah. And I saw these other guys like doing some work afterwards, and I was like, oh, that's really cool. They're putting in work. And I heard you, I don't know if you came up to us. I think you said it to them.
Yeah.
You were like, did you guys not work hard enough during practice?
Yeah.
Right.
And I was like, wow,
yeah,
what a way to think about that. Like, here I'm like, oh, look at those guys, like, putting in some extra work. Well, okay, you wouldn't have to put in extra work if you just put in your full work at that one time.
Like, 2.5 hours of wrestling is enough.
That's
if you
a lot.
Do it.
Yeah.
Like, you don't need to do more than that. And our coaches will even say that, like, when they have an off day, they say, take it off. You're not coming in and running. You're not wrestling. Take it off. I need your guys' energy the next day. Because, I don't know, I just think people sit there and perform at like 60% all the time. You know what I mean? And it's just like,
so how do you always give it? Would you say you always give your 100%?
I mean, no, not always, right? Like, of course, just humans, it's tough. But I've really just tried to pride myself in the fact that you can take me to the deepest waters possible, and I'm going to still be the man that I say I am. Because so many people go, I'm tough. I'm so tough. I'm so this. And I'd be like, yo, if we got in a wrestling match, in 5 minutes, you won't be tough anymore. I will break you. I will make you so soft. And like, for me, and of course I still break. I still, you know what I mean, have my bad times and kind of give up in positions. But I always have that in the back of my head. Is like, is
this like your self-talk?
Yeah, oh yeah. I have to.
We're gonna get into that.
I have
soon,
to be the man that I say I am. And like, I mean, there's this idea that like people only go to 40% and then they allow their mind to take over and say, okay, that's enough. That's enough. And for me, it's like, I got to try to get to that 70, 80%. Because I know I could even do more, right? There's always so much more that you can do. But I just try to keep pushing that wall back just slowly.
That's really interesting because I remember something you said to me when we were in PE together in high school. I think it was my sophomore year when we had 4 Bryces in the class.
For sure.
And we were running laps, and I was like, man, I'm so tired. And you looked at me and you were like, no, you're not. It's in your head. Like, just think about not being tired and just run.
Yeah.
And I literally remember that to this day because it really is just a mindset. And what's interesting is you say, you know, a lot of people just kind of go like 60% in practice. I think that's the biggest detriment because if you practice at 60%, you don't know how to get to 100%.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, my coach, he has a thing where he goes like, the harder you practice, the better you'll feel.
Exactly.
And it's like, because you understand that you can still live when you're so tired.
Right.
But if you don't go there and you get that tired, you're like, yo, I'm going to die.
Yeah,
like,
exactly. It's going to seem way worse than it actually is.
Die. But if you go there often, you're just like, I'm tired.
Right.
And even like when you get in good shape and you like have pushed it, you still get so tired. But you go, I know that I can keep going.
Mm-hmm.
But if I don't go, like for me, swimming, right? If I get in a pool, I've never pushed that wall back.
Right.
I'm going to be like, I'm drowning. I got to get to the wall.
Yeah.
Because I've never done it.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? But people that can swim, they can just swim. Hundreds, and obviously technique and everything. They can just swim laps on laps on laps. And I'm like, 2, I'm done.
Isn't it crazy how you can find yourself so naturally into something? Because I swam.
Yeah.
And so Bryce was like, I want you to teach me a little bit of like technique and form. And he was like, how do you do this?
I literally went down, which I think is 25 meters.
Yards.
And she did 25 yards, and she did a down and back, and I'm dying.
I'm
and
like, okay, now we need to do a flip turn. And he's like, I am not doing a flip turn.
I was like, I am not going underwater and holding my breath with how out of breath I am right now.
Because once I got to the wall, I am so tired that I'm not doing
I'm done.
Flip turn. Yeah.
Exactly.
100%.
I was like, no, the flip turn will help you. Like,
But that's all training.
Get off the wall
and
easier.
that's what I mean is like,
it's that training.
You're not tough. The only way you become tough is by doing things that make you tough.
And pushing yourself to the point where you think you can't finish it.
Yeah, like mentally tough just isn't just given to you.
Right.
Like you have to force yourself to become mentally tough.
Exactly.
And that's the crappy part is like, you become so mentally tough in one thing, and then the next thing you know, you're like, gosh, I'm a freaking coward.
But, I mean, that kind of goes back to everybody is an expert in their niche.
Yep.
their very small ecosystem,
you know? Can't win everything.
Exactly. You can't. I mean,
game.
the people that are those, triple sport athletes or even double in college, like Kyler Murray from Oklahoma, right? He was playing baseball and football, and he chose football. But there's got to be so much admiration.
I know.
Because he's at the top of his field in 2 different fields.
Yep.
I mean, he had offers.
That's just exhausting, too, because in high school, I would lift weights, I would dance, and I did a sport.
Yeah.
And you would think, I've been dancing all year, like, soccer's going to be a breeze. It's different muscles for every single thing. You could be doing the same like type of movement or using the same muscle, but it's completely different.
Yeah.
I think that could be true of anything, not even just physical activity.
No, yeah,
I mean, you
exactly.
spend a day watching Netflix, taking in information, stimulation and stuff, and you go to bed and you're like, oh yeah, it was a good day. The next day you spend 2-3 hours reading. At the end of the day, you're like, man, I'm tired.
Yeah.
I
read for like 20
drained.
minutes and it starts getting at me.
Exactly.
I start
Yeah.
kind of like slowly getting slower in my chair. I'm kind of falling asleep. Because I just don't have a callus for it.
Exactly.
When I nanny, I help the little girls with their math homework. And I won't do much during the day. Like, I'll babysit a couple other days a week, and I'll read and work on some work stuff. But I come home, and I look at Bryce, and I'm like, I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
We had to go through this assignment 4 times, and I am maxed out.
Exactly.
Like, just because I don't have to do, much more than addition, subtraction, and I have a calculator.
Right.
In 6th grade math, you don't get to use a calculator.
Yeah.
So, like, going back and reteaching myself all these things, just
It's
something
draining,
simple like that.
for sure.
I'm like,
It's bizarre.
Right. So we talked a little bit about, your 2 losses in the NCAA finals and things like that. Is there a favorite failure, a failure that you look back and say, if that didn't happen, I wouldn't be where I am today?
I don't know if there's like a specific match, but there's a lot of moments where I feel as if I wasn't a reliable source.
Mm-hmm.
And it's this idea where we have, like, you're given a gold medal for a reason because people just go, oh, gold's it's just a reliable medal, here it is. But, like, it can go even further that when you're given a gold medal or when you have gold and you put it into the fire, right? You turn the heat up, you put it through the fire, it becomes more pure.
100%.
Right? And Peterson talks about like burning off the dead wood.
Yeah.
Right? Like you have to burn off the dead wood around you to become reliable. And for me, it's like, my goal is to just become this reliable gold medal. And when the times get tough and the moments get hard, I become even more of who I am. I become even more the man that I say I'm going to be. And I think throughout my losses in wrestling in particular, those are the ones that have just created me to, I have to take responsibility for me. I have to train harder. I have to get better. And then it went into school. I have to do my work. I have to get this done. It's, you know what I mean? And if I don't know, I better go ask. I better go ask for help if I don't have the answers for it. And that's where it was like, I just became so so much of a fan of not losing because I was like, okay, I lost. How do I make sure that never happens again? How do I become more reliable?
Right.
How do I become more reliable? How do I become more reliable? And that's like the idea is when the fire turns on, I need to become more pure. I don't need to be wood that just burns off.
And that's a big thing Joe Rogan talks about is he says, you know, when he's talked about being on stage and just totally, he's just horrible night, right? Yep. And he thinks that was one of the worst things I've ever felt in my life, so I'm going to do everything in my power to never feel that again.
Yep.
You know, and I think that's where those kind of favorite failures can come from, where you just feel at the bottom of the barrel and you never want to feel like that again. So you're going to do everything you have to.
For me, if I can pick out one of my favorite of your failures, was definitely the first time you lost to Dean, and then in Cheyenne at that duel.
Yeah.
That was just, I've never felt anything like that.
Yeah. And I think that is what showed, you know, you took that loss and you took it personal and you said, I'm going to do everything I can to not have that feeling happen again, you know?
Yeah, and that's kind of where I talk about where losing in the finals as a senior, the last 20 seconds, why it's so much harder to let go.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I'm still wrestling and I'm still doing things, but I don't get that. I don't get to become a national champ in Division I wrestling ever again. And like, I'll be as honest, I'm normally really good at letting losses go and building off them, realizing I'm never going to do that. But like this one just still hurts. It just like won't go away. It's kind of bizarre, you know, because I've always been super good at just brush it off. Let's go. It's just wrestling. Get better.
Because there was kind of always another opportunity.
There was,
you know.
And like I said, like I'm still competing, so that's something that's like kind of helps me get through it. But it hurts. Like it was a weird loss, especially just losing in the last 20 seconds. It's like a game-winning shot, pretty much. You're just like, gosh, why did that have to go in?
I know.
Like, why?
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
But it is what it is, you know. And it's like I said, you don't know the consequences of good or bad.
Another question I have is, what is a habit that you have that people might think is unusual or weird that you just either can't let go of or something that you love to do?
I take a bath almost every day.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
So for me, I think taking a bath is one of the most incredible things somebody can do as a human. Like, I really do. It's a moment that you just get to like chill, and it's just you know what I mean? Like, you finally get to shut the world off. And sometimes I'll listen to podcasts, but sometimes I'll just be there. And I'll just be in the moment, and I'll kind of meditate in it.
Right.
I've been trying to get a little bit better about meditation. But
yeah, that's what we've been focusing on.
The moment for my entire life, I get done with a hard practice. And obviously it's like, oh, your body hurts, so taking a bath makes it feel better. But like, I just need to go, sit down, and just
kind of let your mind wander wherever it wants to
go. Just let everything shut off it takes 20 minutes.
Right,
That's
exactly.
it. A bath takes like 20, 30 minutes. Take 20, 30 minutes and be there. Meditate. Think about what you need to do. Pray. Watch a podcast. Read a book. And I tell people that all the time. Like when people are like stressed or like super have like bad anxiety, I'm like, yo, just start taking a bath every day.
Yeah.
I literally tell people that. I say just start with the bath, and then everything else has got to become better too. But when I don't, like, if I'm at a wrestling tournament and I have a wrestling tournament, I go in the hotel room and there's only a shower. Oh, I hate it. It makes me so mad. It's like, man, I don't get my 20 minutes to just be like, it's nice, you know?
Right.
So
yeah, absolutely.
That's something that I think everybody needs
Well, and
to
20 minutes is just such a short amount of time compared to the hours in the day to make such a huge impact. So I don't know if I already said this. We talked right before the podcast too, but one thing that I'm so interested in is your visualization and your like meditating. The first time I heard that you take baths and you just really focus and meditate, and I was like, Bryce, that is so cool. I was like, I've wanted to sit down and talk to you about this forever.
I know.
I mean, we've talked about this a lot of times. I'm like, I just want to pick your brain and talk to you about it. So, like, when did you get into meditation? What started? Do you remember?
I don't know. I think I've maybe been blessed with like a very conscious mind and very like a self-reflective mind.
Because this is not normal for people our age to be like very into this kind of stuff.
Yeah,
so when
just that kind of self-awareness.
Yeah, when I find somebody else, I'm like, let's dish it all out.
Yeah.
Let's talk.
Yeah, I think for me it was like I did a lot of dumb stuff as a kid. Right, I always was trying to like get in trouble. I was always pushing the limits. I was always doing these things, and then I always knew that I was doing something wrong. Right, like I always knew what that was, but I didn't care to change it. And I think as I got older, I started like realizing that, like, I just need to hold up a mirror and realize what the hell I'm doing wrong and actually change it, because you don't have to look very far into yourself to realize how wrong or badly you're doing things or living life, or how self-righteous you're becoming, or whatever it may be. So for me, I think that was kind of where I always kind of held up the mirror, but I didn't change anything. And then as I just started getting older, I started realizing that I needed to fight these demons, because if you don't, they're just going to get bigger. Right? Like addiction.
Oh, yeah,
How does addiction start? Because you don't snip it in the butt soon enough.
You're just trying to numb something.
We've had old friends that, we've been very worried, and we've talked to them.
And I've sat down and I've cried with them, and I never ever bring up my dad to be like, oh, poor me, like my dad, but like, I would sit down and look at him and be like, my dad died from this, and I love you, and I do not ever want to see this happen to you. Like, the effects that it has on me, I'm 24. My dad died when I was 17, started drinking when I was in 6th grade. Well, it was like really noticeable when I was in 6th grade. And I am still barely working through it.
Well, like, and it affects so many other people than just the direct people that have to deal with it.
Even like Bryce before, when, we've had really like serious talks, not in a bad way or anything, but, telling him I have a lot of baggage in my past, and a lot of it, I am seriously, it wasn't even by my choice. Like, the choices my dad made are still affecting me to this day. Like, I can't go out every weekend and drink heavily, and because I don't even want to mess with getting too into it. And
in no way, like, we drink probably once every 2 months. So in no stretch of the imagination are you an alcoholic. But people say that kids of alcoholics have such a higher risk of becoming alcoholics. It's like
if your great-grandparent was an alcoholic, you're already 8 times more likely. So my grandpa, crazy. My dad, and if you're a female, you're like 3 times more as likely. So the odds are just totally stacked against me. But
it really puts into perspective the choices that you make now are going to affect generations. Especially influential people like yourself. The things you say, not just your family, they're going to affect anyone and everyone. It
really does. And that's why I say, like, you're not that many decisions away from freaking your life up.
Exactly.
You're really not. So that's why I say, like, you need to sit down and hold that mirror up more often than you want to. Because that's what I mean. Like, you don't just come out of the womb an alcoholic. But a couple decisions, a couple more decisions, a couple more. Now you're in it. Now you're stuck.
And you've affected your grandkids, great grandkids,
If you even get to that point. But I mean, even if there's a listener out there that is at a point where they feel, whether they're scared to look in the mirror or anything like that, for a long time, I wasn't even looking at myself. I was looking at Mr. McFadden and thinking about every choice I made. Well, what would he think? Even my mom. I am ridiculously close to my mom. I am such... It's probably annoying to people, but my mom is my absolute best friend. And I just think, even like my dad's brother that I'm really close with, I don't want to post something on Instagram that he wouldn't be okay or comfortable showing his daughters 100%. That I love so much. Like, even when I couldn't put me first and like hold myself accountable, I used those people that inspire me.
I think it's really important too to know that if you're not ready to look at yourself in the mirror as often as you should, look to other people, because they can see you for who you really are a lot of times.
For sure.
If they're good people and sensible people, they can tell. And if they're going to be willing to give you the advice, those are one of the 5 people you should surround yourself with.
I was just going to say, this goes right back into those 5
It really
people.
does.
That's where I think people have gotten a little bit confused with the whole, like, be tolerant for people that are different from you, and the fine line of, like, you need to correct people when they're wrong. Right? So it's like people get a little bit too crazy, I think, nowadays, where it's like people should be able to do whatever they want whenever they want, as long as it doesn't hurt somebody else.
Exactly.
That's what's said. And I'm like, yeah, that's true. If you want to do whatever you want, that's cool. But I'm going to correct you if you're wrong. If you're my friend and you're doing something that I don't believe is correct, I'm going to let you know. And that is my duty. And I think more friends need to be that way. Like, you need to hold people accountable for what they're doing.
Not even that, but even just, so I used to always say, oh, I'm going to go across the street, like with the T at the end. I'm going to go across the street. Simple things like that. And at first, when my Bryce would correct me with those things, I would get really, like, mad at him. Offended and just embarrassed. I think mostly it was just that I was embarrassed. But then I saw Matthew McConaughey say, if you correct somebody and they get offended, it's because they have an ego issue, not you.
Yeah.
And once I saw that, I was like, Bryce just loves me.
Yeah.
He's just trying to help me.
Right.
And like we talked about it, and I was like, please don't do that in front of other people. Like, pull me aside.
Yeah.
That definitely would, because I just
Because
don't
there's
wanna...
correcting and then there's embarrassing.
Yeah,
100%,
exactly. So even just simple things like grammar and then all the way to, you're not making good choices. Like, you need to get it together.
Yeah. That's how Zach Hall and I became really good friends was, we kind of just started talking, and then he's said this to other people or whatever, so I'm kind of saying what he says, but he's like, I always appreciated for Bryce just asking questions. Mm-hmm. Like, as simple as that. I would ask grammar questions all the time. Once I hit about, 16, 17 years old, and I realized I was just kind of like an idiot with some things, I was like, I'm just going to ask questions.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I'll ask questions, and people will be like, are you serious? You don't know that? And I'm like, no, I don't know that.
No, I don't
I'm sorry.
know that.
Or like Zach, he's studying, you know what I mean? He's like a mathematician. And I'll just be like, yo, sit down and explain some of this stuff to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll never understand it, but it's like, I still want you to teach me something that I would have never known. And like you said, I think I did that right around probably 17 years old. I started, I was just like, because when I was a kid, I was so prideful, right? Like, I gotta be smart, I gotta be the best, I gotta be this, I gotta be that. And then for some reason I was just like, I don't need to be that way. I just need to ask questions.
Well, and you're never gonna, be where you want to be if you don't learn from other people.
Sure.
Because so many people have so much knowledge to provide, and as much as you might think it, you don't know everything.
Well, one of the things that I think is that I really admire about you is that, like, I reached out to Bryce to reach out to you, and you were like, yeah, no problem, because there have been other athletes at Wyoming where I've just simply tried to introduce myself.
Yeah, and you're not too big for friends or friends of friends or anyone in general,
you're not too big to come over and hang out on our 5th episode.
Right.
It's our 5th
fifth episode.
Yeah. Because it's, we align with a lot of these things, and I think that is something that's really huge. And that a lot of people in your position of, being a top athlete and things like that are missing out on they're not humble like you are.
Right. And it's just refreshing to see that you have this knowledge and you're willing to spread it on any platform, no matter how big or small.
For sure.
And so I think that's really important. So
yeah, well, thank you guys.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that.
Okay, so I'm done with the Tim Ferriss questions. I've wanted to ask you this for a long time. Have you ever considered MMA?
Yeah, 100%. After 2020, I'll probably fight.
Really?
Yeah, so for me, I have to finish out a little bit more wrestling. Mm-hmm. I think the 12-year-old me would hate myself if I didn't take an Olympic hopeful, you know what I mean, Olympic cycle. So, and I still have a lot of wrestling too that I want to get better at. So, I'll go through 2020, and then from there I'll redecide what I actually want to do. Sure. But I really would love to do fighting. Mm-hmm. I think I have a good style. I've went and sparred and rolled with people and stuff, and I am good at it just naturally, even outside of the wrestling, just because of our feet work and finding angles and that kind of stuff.
Well, and intuition and stuff like that.
Yeah, so it's like, we have that. But I always say, the business is it's not what people think. The business is real snaky, real slimy. Just managers, gyms, all these people that are trying to get a piece of your earnings.
Right.
You know what I mean? And you need those people, right? Like, you can't do it all by your own. You need these people to promote you and find sponsors and stuff. So,
well, even like Dana White.
Yeah.
How Bryce, I don't know if you've heard this, but he said that he's heard that if Dana White is gambling because he has a gambling problem.
This is from Joe Rogan.
Yeah, that if he gets kicked out of a casino or they don't let him come back,
because he's a very good gambler.
Yeah.
So you know how people kick you out if you make too much money.
And he's like, okay, then I'll never bring an MMA fight here.
Yeah,
it's just kind of like I can see what you mean by that.
Yeah, it's insane. And I know Dana White hates this and he thinks it's like a big conspiracy. But he picks who's fighting.
Yeah,
if you're not liked or if you're not what they want to be, you're not going to get your title shot.
Right.
Like,
it's not as much about skill as it is popularity.
It is so much popularity, right? Like, if you're the best fighter in the world, you will rise to the top. Mm-hmm. But a lot of people aren't the best. Mm-hmm. So how do you get to your money? You have to get a big fight. If they don't like you, then you don't get it. So the business is weird. And then there's always this. You never know how good you are getting kicked in the head until you get kicked in the head.
Exactly.
So it's like you can sit there and be like, man, I'm going to be a tough fighter. I'm going to do this. And then you might get kicked in the head and have a glass jaw.
Well, it's kind
some
of
people
like...
have glass jaws. Some people just don't get knocked out.
It's kind of like Khabib versus Conor.
Yeah.
You know, Conor is this larger than life fighter, fought Floyd Mayweather, went into a different sport, one of the greatest strikers we've ever seen, but he doesn't really know what it's like to be wrestled.
Yeah.
You know, wrestled down to where you can't do anything until you face someone like Khabib.
For sure.
You know, because he faced Eddie Alvarez, who is, I mean, he's a good wrestler,
Yeah.
but, you know, didn't really have the drive and the fight that Khabib has. For
sure.
You know?
Yeah,
and so that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, Joe Rogan talks about it. Everybody talks about it, that wrestling is the best thing to have.
Right.
It really is. You get to dictate where the fight is. And also, if you made it through, like, college wrestling, the amount of life you've spent having to be disciplined in this sport where it's 3 hours a day of just being constantly miserable.
Right.
Like, you're going to be tougher than
Well, and I think wrestlers naturally have a lot more endurance because
Yeah.
it takes a lot more to have your muscles constantly clenched and holding on to something rather than, like, you know, Floyd Mayweather standing up, boxing.
Just punching, yeah.
Right, exactly.
And that, I mean, like we said, if I go and punch, I'm going to be tired in 2 minutes.
Exactly.
I don't do it. But, like,
the overall endurance.
the endurance of a fight, of just the grueling of fighting and wrestling and constant stress is a lot. Even people that do jiu-jitsu, it's a lot more flow.
Right.
Just flowing, rolling. And it's like they come into it and they're really good, but they are missing a little bit of that.
Exactly.
Just like that grit of just being tough as hell.
Absolutely. So to kind of go off of that, what were your thoughts on the Khabib-Conor fight and, you know, the fines that came out a couple weeks ago?
You know, for me, this is where I've always kind of wanted to draw the line in UFC and fighting. I think they allow it to get too serious. I think Conor McGregor, and I'm a fan of Conor McGregor and I like him, but if we're talking about the fighting, I've always known that he's not the fighter that people think he is. Right. He is a great fighter.
He's not as balanced.
But he's not the greatest fighter ever. And
Right.
I would have never said, and I'm always like, yo, he's not as good as you guys think he is in retrospect to the greatest, right? And then the other one is like, it's too much when you're sitting there saying, fuck the Mayweathers,
right?
Fuck your family, this, that, the other thing. Like, that is too. It's too much. It's not good for kids to see it. It's too. And
that's like the reckless.
And Khabib finally was the guy that goes, this might be business to you, but this was too much.
Yeah.
You crossed the line. You offended me and my family. Khabib lives with his parents in a village in Dagestan, Russia. And you're going to sit there and crap on his family? That's a different kind of beast, dude. Like,
it's not just talking about, like, you're and I's dad, you know, where it's like, oh yeah, they were our parents. That's, I mean, they are their family,
their religion, their everything. So, for me, I just think, one, we need to draw a little bit of lines for the crap talking. I think that needs to be a little bit settled. Two, obviously, Khabib he did something that he shouldn't have done, but, like, I don't know.
It's hard to blame him.
It is, and it's hard to
blame anyone
to
react
tame a damn
way.
Tiger at that moment.
Right. And see,
Khabib is one of the most respected fighters of all that has ever been around up until this point, because now that's what the whole world saw. But, like, before that, he, like, hugs people. He's very kind. Everybody's just like, Khabib's a nice guy until he gets in the ring.
And see, I'm very pro McGregor. I've always been a Conor McGregor fan, but I am 100% willing to recognize that Conor said some things that were absolutely out of line. And it's hard to blame those guys for how they reacted.
For sure.
You know?
Yeah, I mean,
in the simplest of terms, for all the other people out there that don't follow UFC, it's just poking the bear. You just, you can't do that and then be shocked that you're hurt or something happened or you're in trouble.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Something I've always been really curious about too was, what's your diet like during season, and does it change?
Yeah, it changes.
Yeah.
For me, I'm not all that strict about it. Okay, so there's this idea that everything's a coin, right? On one side of the coin, there's a cowboy that just don't give a shit, that's just gonna win. And then on the other side, it's like the professor or somebody that like everything has to be perfect. Their diet, their this, everything's like, you know what I mean? They follow everything by the book. And I think I'm like way more on the cowboy side. Yeah. Where I'm just like, especially with wrestling, because it's like I'm kind of cutting weight anyway, so my diet's gonna be kind of hard to have, like, just be sitting there fueling myself with amazing foods all the time. So for me, it was never I was just eating ridiculous stuff all the time. Yeah. But I was not eating, I guess, as some people would say, what I need to be eating all the time. And then this is the other thing that, like, people get really confused with wrestling and cutting weight. So the idea is cutting weight is its net weight. So it's this right here is a pound of water, right? If I drink that, I gain a pound. I can go eat a whole bag of chips and gain 4 ounces. Right. Okay?
Well, and the fact that we're 70 whatever percent water.
So everything is net weight. It doesn't matter caloric really. In the long run it does. But if it's just like a couple day cut, you know.
Well, especially with how fast you burn fat
it's all
and
just
how many
net
calories
weight.
you burn. Yeah.
It's just all net weight. So for me it's like you need to eat healthy and stuff. But if I eat a salad the day before, that gives me no energy.
Mm-hmm.
If I eat a candy bar, that's going to give me energy for this 3-hour practice I'm about to have to go to.
Right.
Because it's sugar. Right? And it's like I can't eat a whole bunch of complex carbs because it weighs too much.
Exactly.
So you have to like really realize that it's, I don't know, it's net weight. So it's hard to manage it perfectly how you want to. And then when it comes down to it, you have to fake energy.
Yeah.
And how you fake it is sugar.
Now, explain this to me. So is wrestling the same as UFC where you have the weigh-ins the day before a match?
No, so that's where it's different. So wrestling, it's 2 hours before.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so you don't cut as much weight. You have to be much more careful about, you know, you're not going to drop like, they come in 2 days before, they're like 12 pounds over still.
Right.
They cut all that water because they have a full day to put all that water back into
Right.
them. And they understand that the cutting is they cut too much weight in UFC because it is night before, but they can't change it to day of because people will have not enough water in their brain and it'll cause more concussions.
Gotcha.
So it's a danger thing.
So now,
but with wrestling, we're not getting punched. So 2 hour weigh-ins. So nowadays it's like you cut like 8 pounds, and most of that's water. It's not that bad.
Now, when you weigh in, like, what was your normal wrestling weight?
Yeah, 141.
141. So then, what are you at come fight time, like, or come wrestling match
Yeah,
time?
but I would gain about probably 5 pounds.
How do you gain 5 pounds in 2 hours?
Yo,
Just water?
You'll just drink water, and you'll just drink two. You'll get a 32-ounce Gatorade or whatever it is. You'll drink 2 of them, and you won't even know that you drank.
Really?
It's insane.
That's crazy. So you just keep going, just keep
and that's like the
pounding
funniest
liquids.
part about it is it's like I have to work so hard all week to lose these 3-4 pounds or these last 2 days, and then I literally grab something, and in 3 minutes it's all back on.
That's
You're
crazy.
Like, gosh, that sucks. Like, why can't I just take that out and then put it back in when I want? So
exactly.
But
now, what do UFC fighters? I don't know if you have any insight on this, but when they weigh in the day before, how much weight do they gain?
they get about like 15-20 pounds.
Really?
Yeah, but they're cutting a lot more. That's what I mean. So like, if I fought in the UFC, I would have to go to 135. I would be doing a 20-pound cut. And then if I had a whole day weigh in, I would get up to about 150.
So is your standard weight around 150, 160?
Yeah, like 53 to 55.
Yeah.
Now. But like during college, I was like 50.
So whether it's a wrestling match or a UFC fight, you're never fighting at your weight class. Interesting.
Not really. But like I said, wrestling-wise, like in season, I weigh like 48, 50, and I wrestle 141. That's nothing.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well,
that's a workout for some people.
That's kind of all the questions I have. I'll let you go a little bit into kind of the self-talk and things like that.
Okay.
Because I think that's all I have on my list.
Okay, so I kind of started by asking you, like, when did you really start getting into meditation? And we covered all of that. So I want to hear about you visualizing and what you visualize and, just those routines and
So
rituals.
I have this thing where, it's this idea that so I call it like the bell curve, right? So we have a bell curve, and inside the normal distribution it's 70%, right? And then now we have on the wings we have like 25, 25, 33. And for me, I try to keep my mind within the bell curve. So for me, if I start thinking, if I spend all my time, all my thoughts of only in the future, it's too much. I'm like, okay, I'm only thinking about that. I'm not really taking care of what I'm taking care of, and I'll get too excited about stuff, right? I'll be like, oh my God, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And it gets too much. I get too excited. And then if I spend too much time in the past, it's bad because, you know what I mean? You start either boasting in your past accomplishments or, getting sad about your defeats. So for me, it's like I try to spend 70% of my mental thoughts in the now. And then I spend about 25%, or, you know what I mean? 13% in the future, 13% in the past. And then even a little bit way far in the future. So that's kind of where I go with my mental thoughts is I try to kind of manage how much of where I need to be with that, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So is that kind of just how you visualize? Or I know that when you said when you take baths, you visualize too. So do you visualize like what's coming up, what you're going to do? Or is that bell curve kind of what you do?
How does that mind process work?
Yeah.
Do you see yourself winning the national championship, becoming an Olympian?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And it just comes in waves. Everything does, right? Like sometimes, and obviously it comes differently if I'm about to compete too. Like my week if I have a competition this weekend, let's just say, my mind is so creative this week. And then the next week it kind of like, it just kind of goes back to normal, you know? So it all just depends on what's actually happening and what's going on. And like I said, you just kind of got to balance things, because sometimes I'll get too excited about things. Yeah. And I'll only be thinking about winning the national title. Mm-hmm. I have to win 5 matches against 5 really good opponents before that.
Just to get there.
So you better ease yourself a little bit and just realize you better start just worrying about the first match. Mm-hmm. And that's what I mean. So it's like, and it comes at different times, right? Sometimes it's in the bath. Sometimes it's while I'm running. Sometimes it's while I'm just sitting in bed. Mm-hmm. Like, competition week, sometimes it's super hard to sleep because my mind is just going and going and going. So that's why I try to manage it, because if not, I think things can become they can kind of like engulf me. And sometimes I give too much stuff. So I guess this is a little bit different, but this is what I tell kids when they have a big week of competition, is you have a devil on your shoulder and you have an angel on your shoulder. And the devil is going to sit there and tell you how shitty you are, how big of a wuss you are, how you haven't trained hard enough, like how you haven't done these things. And then the angel will be the good guy and sit there and say, hey, you're the greatest, you can do this, you work so hard all those early mornings. And you have to spend time with both of them. You have to spend time with the devil and understand, because he knows the truth. He knows that you've been weak. He knows that these things. So he's not just coming out of the blue just with random stuff. He knows your doubts. So you have to spend time with him, and you have to talk to him and understand how to beat that monster. And then you got to spend time with the angel and sit there and build yourself up. And then at the end, when it's time, you freaking punch the devil off, and you and the angel rock on. And I tell kids, like, I think it's a really good way to manage nerves, because the body doesn't know the difference between nerves and fear. Right? So I, as a kid, you scared? Are you nervous? I'm nervous, but I'm not scared. How do you know? Yeah. You might be scared, man. Right. You're scared. Like, and that's okay. Yeah. Understand you're scared and understand why you're scared, and then go towards it and understand it, beat that freaking monster up, and then you can go. So for me, it's like, I think sometimes we get a little bit too much of this idea of like, be positive, be positive, be positive, be positive, and then too much negative will just creep up behind us and crush us. But don't be just negative all the time either. So for me, you have to play with both. You have to keep your mind inside this curve, and you got to kind of manage all of it. Yeah. So with your goals, do you ever, or you talk about how you sometimes get really focused on winning just like the national title, but you need to like resurface, come back down a little bit and think about those other 5 matches. Yeah. Do you ever write any of this stuff down? Like, do you ever kind of like mind map it, I guess, is a way to do it? 100%. I mean, my notes in my phone, I have so many notes of just the most bizarre stuff. Like, I wish I can kind of take it, and I should probably like organize it all because of that, because I mind map and I go into these certain things where it's like, now that if I go back to it, I'm like, what the hell was I doing? I have a lot of notes like that too. I'm like, I don't even know what I said. Like, I was scrolling through my computer, and I had this one thing where it was like, I can't remember what it said. And I was like, where was I going with that? And that's why I wish I would sit down and write down a little bit more, you know? And so it's, I mean, I think it's important to at least write something down, because if not, it goes away forever. Exactly. It really does. And so you at least have to, for me, I don't write pen to paper as much, just because I have my phone on me all the time. It's just like the times that we live in. So, I spend a lot of time on my notes. Yeah, okay, that's good to know. Just like kind of writing it down. Because, but I think just getting it down wherever you can is important. Yeah, just literally the act of getting it out of your fingers is what is huge. So, I mean, creativity comes not that often. So if it comes to you, write it down. Exactly. And I need to get better, because I'll go, when I'm laying in bed, I'm like, I don't really want to pick my phone up again. It's always, and then I completely forget, like a dream. Right. I forgot what I had in my head. And I'm like, it was so good. Or so important. Yeah. Or I always do that when I'm, like, if I'm sitting there and I'm cleaning and I think about something fun that I'm going to get to do here soon. Yeah. Like, maybe it's, I get to, go to the gym, or I get to watch a YouTube video or something. Yeah. Well, like, sit in the sauna or the hot tub. Aging. But play I'm like, if I forget that, I'm like, crap, I was going to do something really fun, and now I don't remember what it is. Yeah. What was it? That happens to me a lot. Yeah. So just kind of talking about rituals that you have, I guess that goes along with just kind of, can you just go through like the week before a really big, match or something like that? Just kind of, do you have like daily rituals? Do you try to keep yourself on a schedule, I guess is what I'm trying to get at? No, so that's where I fall into the line of the cowboy again. For me, when I started getting like these rituals or whatever, then I become superstitious. Yeah. And then once you become superstitious, if that goes wrong, now you're thinking about that going into your match. And so, and I remember I had a teacher that told me, it was like a joke, but it was like, people that are less intelligent are more superstitious. And I go, well, I'm intelligent, so I'm not going to be superstitious. And of course, like some things start creeping up on me. And I'm like, no, it doesn't matter. It does not matter what socks you wear. It doesn't. And so that's where I try to keep myself in this kind of this rock star. Like when I show up, I'm just going to freaking vibe out, have fun. And there's nothing that you can throw at me that's going to matter. And it's like, I guess that's maybe one of my rituals is I tell myself that if anything happens, it's not going to derail my train.
Yeah. And I think that plays into the personality that people saw in you through NCAA wrestling. Yeah. You know, and that kind of character, that outcast that you are is you don't have these set schedules. You don't sit down 30 minutes before a match and just visualize the entire thing and you just kind of fly by the seat of your pants, but that's what works for you. For sure. You know?
Yeah. And I mean, people gravitated toward that for sure. Just,
absolutely.
Based on my interviews and stuff, you know, I've gotten a lot of very kind words towards that, and I think that's where it was because like they would just ask me a question and I would just be like, nah, like that's not how it is.
Yeah.
Like, oh, like a 14 seed. I'm like, I'm not a 14 seed.
Right.
They're like, well, yeah, you are a 14. And I'm like, yeah, you know what I mean? Like I understand I am, but I'm not.
There are not a lot of other people in any sport that would say I'm not there. Yeah. Like I am way better than that.
Yeah, and I was just like, I would kind of throw questions back out at people. Right. Ones where I'm just like, no. You're not going to tell me what I am.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm going to tell you what I am. And I'm going to show you what I am, too. And it's like...
How do you feel being a 14 seed?
Yeah, that would be funny, right? Just really start messing with them?
Yeah. Confusing them. So, we got to talking a little bit about gratitude before we started. Yep. So, what do you do with that? How do you... Just talk to me about what you think gratitude is and how it's played a role in your career and your life.
I think if you can get to a point where you're grateful for everything, and like I said, good consequences, bad consequences, good things in your life, bad things in your life, and if you can just be grateful for every one of those things is going to teach you a lesson or it's going to make you the person that you're going to be moving forth, your life can become, it gets simple. It really does. Like I get cheated on by an ex-girlfriend. You're like, oh, that's the worst thing ever. But it's like, no, that is the best thing. It can teach you of how the person that you would never want to be or the things that you never want to do. And then beyond that, like now you have been in a weird spot relationship-wise. But like I need to pull it out and I need to trust people moving forward. And that you use these things to teach you because if you don't, you just become bitter. Yeah. And once you become bitter, then you become like vengeful. And after that, you don't know what's going to happen. Yeah. Becoming vengeful or, you know... towards like the world, man,
men are trash, women are crazy. Like, no, or all the good men are taken or gay. No, that's
you can't think like that because that goes back to the visualization. You're speaking that into existence. So when you say that, that's what's going to surround you.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
And it's like
get stuck.
That's where politics are just so silly to me. The left and the right, they just contradict themselves all the time. Where it's like the funniest one to me was, like. If somebody says something slightly racist 5 years ago, they're getting burned at the stake. For something that they did, that maybe they was a little messed up, we don't allow them any freaking grace. Any. But then we think that like if somebody murders somebody, they should have steps to, you know, come back into the society. And for me, I'm all for second chances and everything. Yeah. So they're cool with that for murderers, but for somebody that's said something racist, it's not.
It's like the Kevin Hart scandal, exactly. You know, where he had some homophobic tweets, and you know, to his credit, 100%, he stepped down from the Oscars because he said the only thing it's going to be about is me and my tweets, and I don't want to do that. But you know. He has renounced that and he has apologized and said, that's not me anymore. That we lived in a different time. And yes, I shouldn't have said those things, but that's not who I am right now.
Or, I mean, the classic case of the 14, 15, 16-year-old that tweets the things and then later on gets put in the draft or, you know, goes to the NBA.
Yeah, it makes me sick.
Yeah.
Like it happened with Larry Nance. It happened with Josh Allen.
Yeah, and then have you seen that video?
Because they were different times.
Yeah, exactly.
We could call our friends a fag. Yeah. And that was the most normal thing ever. Yeah. Now you just don't do it because you understand that, like, okay, that's hurtful. We're not going to do it.
But times grow. You can't blame people for saying things that people weren't really offended by.
We should be more happy that they're progressing.
Exactly, and not focusing on the fact that we did say them at some point.
People always and I'm not a fan of Hillary Clinton, but people always go like, Hillary Clinton wasn't a fan of gay marriage in 1980 or 1999. Yeah. I'm like,
80% of America probably wasn't.
So what do you? That's not what we should be saying that she's flawed at.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm glad that she is. If she has a seat at the table now because she thinks gay people should be allowed to marry.
I'm sure a long time ago, if you were gay, you could be sentenced to the death penalty.
Yeah.
But, I mean, we don't look back at that. You can't look back at that and think, okay, those people that did that were the worst people of all time. Yes, they were murderers and stuff, but times change, and you have to accept that and recognize that.
It's when they continuously do negative and bad and, make those
100%,
poor choices. Then that's when we should be like, this is a pattern. We should probably kind of notice it. But when they're, like, making choices for the better, that just drives me crazy.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
And it's just, I don't know. I think we just live in a really, such a divisive time. Mm-hmm. Everything's identity this, you know what I mean? This category, this category. And people just can't, like, coexist.
Well, the biggest thing...
We need to, like, live on our differences.
Yeah.
Like, we need to love our differences. And that's what it is. And people are just like, everything's a box now. And it's killing us.
I don't know why it's been in my mind the last couple of days, but I am a huge Moana fan.
Yeah.
I love Moana. And growing up, I loved Mulan, and all the Disney princesses of different kinds. And I dressed up as Mulan when I was really little. Mm-hmm. And all I could think about the last couple of days is, what am I going to tell if I have a daughter someday, what am I going to tell her when she says, I want to be Moana? And I have to say, that's cultural appropriation. You're not allowed to be Moana.
People are offended.
I'll never get behind cultural appropriation.
No, because she's not looking at Moana as
a different race.
No, she's looking at Moana as a strong, independent, and fearless girl that she wants to be like.
Right,
so
for sure.
I don't know why that's been in my mind, but it goes with exactly what we're talking about.
Well,
I didn't see Mulan as an Asian or anything like that, and I didn't.
She was a freaking rock star.
Exactly, I was like, she's a baddie, and I want to be like her.
Well, and I think that's what Jordan Peterson talks about a lot, is these ideological ways of thinking, because it's the same thing that Joe Rogan talks about a lot with these people that think the earth is flat. If I think the earth is flat, and I go online and I search flat earth theories, I'm going to have affirmations, and I'm going to say, okay, I'm right, because I see these people agree with me. Mm-hmm. But those ideological ways of thinking, you can't think like that, because those people don't take in both sides. Yeah. They don't take in all the information. They take in the information that aligns with what they believe in.
Yeah. And that's the problem with social media, though, too.
Oh, absolutely.
It's just the echo chamber of the one or two sides. And quite frankly, I think most people are very center cut.
Yeah.
Most people are very center cut in favor of liberal ideas that people should have rights.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I would say everybody in my life that I know right now is in favor for that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then we can argue more about like capitalism or like a little bit more, these social nets or whatever. Mm-hmm. Like, that's different, but that doesn't need to be a crazy freaking argument. Like we have social nets, we help people. Like we're living in a time where there's the least amount of people starving.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Most people connected to the electrical grid. Like we're doing okay.
Yeah, or how about how like in 2018 book sales went up?
Yeah,
like
and that's
awesome.
Books.
Unemployment is down and things like that.
All those kind of things.
But it kind of goes back to that. You could have 100 positive things happen and one negative, and that overshadows the entire thing.
I've been looking on Fiverr for somebody to help me with my resume, and I'll see 10 amazing comments, and then all of a sudden I'll see a really bad one, and I'm like, okay, I gotta find somebody else.
Yeah, it kind of gets plugged into your brain.
Which of these bad comments is the least bad? And then that's not, it shouldn't be like that.
Yeah.
That one single
the
negative
comments,
thing.
like Rogan talks about, like, you gotta avoid the comment in the mention sections and stuff as most you can. Every once in a while, I'll interact with somebody, but, like, just the other day, somebody tweeted, like, you guys follow Bryce Meredith voluntarily? And I was like, oh, that's kind of funny. Like, whatever. I just retweeted it. I was like, that's so funny.
Yeah.
But when it comes down to it, I've been nice to that kid to his face. I've complimented his outfit once in school, and I've said hello to him a couple times, and he still says that. And I think it's because I'm a white, you know what I mean?
Successful man.
Yeah. And I'm like, wow, what a time that, like, I've been nice to you to your face, and it still hurt. I don't know what is hurting you so bad, but you do the energy to tweet that. It's like, I'm sorry, man.
Yeah. Exactly.
Like, life sucks for you.
Well, my mom's always taught me that if something about somebody else makes you, like, mad or anything like that or drives you crazy, it's because it's either like a reflection of what you don't possess or what you
it's
like
something
what
that you have to
wish
figure out how
you
to
could
deal
possess
with,
or something you do possess. Like sometimes I'll be mad at Bryce because I'm like, you don't compliment me anymore. And then I think about it and I'm like, I'm also not really complimenting you.
Yeah.
Or things like that. Or that kid that said that to you is probably just insecure and jealous. And I'm not like talking bad. I have no idea who you're talking about.
No.
I'm not talking down or anything. But it's not fair that he wouldn't say that to your face.
I know.
Well, and you can think that stuff and you can feel that way, but you can't put that negativity into the world.
Yeah.
I mean, even honestly thinking and feeling it is still putting it out there.
If you let it affect you, absolutely.
Yeah,
but
you just have to...
there is no reason to put that kind of negativity out there.
Yeah. And that's where that's another thing I think I tackled, I don't know at what age, but where I used to be really jealous. If somebody's better at me than some, I would be jealous to the point that it would hurt me. Now I get like jealous to the point where like it makes me excited.
Yeah.
I'm like, what, dude? That is so cool. Like, why are you doing so much doper stuff than me?
Right.
Like, damn.
And it just motivates you.
You're jumping off of planes all the time and you're doing backflips on snow. Like, you are so freaking cool. And like, because still, when it hits you, you want to be like, oh, gosh, I wish I was that, or why is he like that, or whatever. But then I go, like, making it excited jealous. And then I started doing that a little bit, and now I don't really get jealous anymore.
That goes into what we've been practicing a lot, is blocking out the mental barriers.
Yeah.
You know, when we started this podcast, we thought, who's going to listen to us? Why do people want to listen to us?
I get nervous.
But you can't think like that. You have to get rid of those and say, we're not doing it just to impress people. We're not doing it just so we get views. We're doing it
to
because
make a difference. That's
we have
literally
knowledge
it.
that we want to give out.
And we know people like you that have knowledge.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean,
like,
what's the quote from Rachel Hollis? It's, nobody that's done more than you will ever criticize you.
Yeah.
So all those people, that guy that says that to you, he's not doing more than you.
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean? You don't see somebody like Conor McGregor, you know, if you were to go into MMA and him be like, oh, you guys follow Bryce Meredith, he doesn't give a crap. He just does not care about you.
He's going to talk his crap, but he's going to, I mean, at the end of the day.
Just not for fun.
No, exactly.
Like, if we're talking the Conor McGregor and you fighting theory, he knows the work you put in to get where you are, and there's kind of that mutual respect.
Yeah.
So, and I think that, like, even Floyd Mayweather, one of the cockiest guys ever, he does that, like, with boxers beneath him. He'll promote them and, you know, give them words of encouragement because he knows the work it takes to get to where he is.
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly. I just had one more question. Do you do anything with affirmations or, you know, speaking things into existence? Kind of just more, you know, like daily affirmations, like your confidence. It can't be easy. I mean, once you learn it and you get there, but I think that that's something really important that, I mean, anybody could take away, not just athletes.
Yeah, like I said, I think what I speak into existence is the committee that's in my mind. And I need to speak to every one of each Bryce in there, and I need to tell him that we need to fix this, and we need to fix that, and we need to do better here, and we need to, you know what I mean, and become more stoic here, but then also become, you know what I mean, determined here, or, you know what I mean, you need to quit falling on that temptation. You need to quit acting on that pleasure. You need to, and I think that's what it is. I'm trying to just build the best committee of these people that can control things that aren't really controllable at times. So, for me, that's where I speak things into existence, is how my mind is going to, you know what I mean, how it's going to react to what's happening. Yeah. Because, you know, it's easy to get really pissed off when somebody does something to you. But it's like, no, tell that little Bryce. You're not going to get pissed. You're going to move on. Yeah. Little big Bryce.
So I want you to talk a little bit about, you know, this business that you've created. You're selling merchandise. And then also what you are doing or need to do to become an Olympian.
Yeah. So, I mean, the whole business thing's been, it's been a lot of fun, right? I've always like enjoyed clothes and stuff. And I've tried to take it into like a more like a streetwear, you know, because I think a lot of time athletes it gets a little bit like logo is BM, BM wrestling, whatever. And I would never use my initials because like BM's like bowel movement.
That's why we're Bryce and Kenzie. Bryce and McKenzie.
So you guys know.
We get it.
Yeah, so it's like, but like for me, I was like, I'm so sick of just these athletic wear, normal looking shirts. So I'm gonna go into it and I'm gonna just add kind of crazy stuff. Like my logo is like an ice cream cone. It's a B Money ice cream cone. Like it's kind of funny like that. And then Mostly like what I've had to try to learn from it. One is it's hard trying to ship things and do all that kind of stuff. Like I need help on those things. So like people always like message me like 3 days after it. Hey, is my shirt coming in?
Yeah.
I'm like, no, dude, this takes me like 2 weeks. Like, I'm not good at this. Right. So like that's one thing. And then the other thing is like trying to realize my worth. You know, I think like sometimes I'm like, oh, I don't know if I want to go that expensive. I don't know if I want to do this, or I don't know if I want to do that. But it's like, yo, you only have a couple years to do this. People are buying you more than they're even buying the thing. So for like me, I've been very lucky. I'm not just trying to build a brand up. My brand has been built, and now I'm like just selling it on merchandise. So for me, it's a completely different realm than anybody. If they're like, hey, I want to start up a t-shirt company, it's like I'm not there to help you. I can't do it.
Yeah.
But for me with athletes, like I really like try to tell some people that are very good wrestlers, and they just like, I'm like, yo, you got to understand your worth. You got to understand there's only like 20 people in the whole United States that can wrestle at your level.
Exactly.
Realize that.
Monetize
20
that.
people.
Right.
20 people. Like, you know what I mean? Or whatever. 20 people that are actually relevant. That's more
even 200. Say. Even 1 in 200 is still...
nothing compared to 300 and some million in this nation.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's like, people care about you.
Exactly. So and if that's your passion, figure out how to make that your career.
For sure.
You know?
Yeah, and that's the goal. You know, that's my goal, is just like always trying to find different ways to monetize me and my wrestling. And that's why I do this like head sharp and this mental coaching and stuff, because I'm like, I just enjoy it. I just love talking to people about mindset. Like that's what we're doing.
Yeah. Right, exactly.
2 hours doing. So it's like, for me, I'm just trying to find all the different ways that I can monetize everything that I've learned through wrestling and try to live off it. You know, I don't want to go get a normal job.
No,
I want to keep living the dream.
And you're,
that's why
you know,
we
I know
do this.
your supporters don't want you to do that either.
I know.
So it's okay if you have a skill and you have value and you monetize it. It's completely okay.
Yeah, well, thanks.
So now, what do you have to do to be an Olympian? What is,
man?
How do you go? What kind of process is that?
Yeah, so this is it's really tough, man, because wrestling, in the Olympics, there's only 6 weight classes. So there's normally 10. The Olympics down to 6. So now everybody's freaking colliding.
Right.
2 like world champions at 2 different weights will now have to wrestle for a spot of an Olympic for just the Olympic team.
Right.
So it's a little jacked up, right? It's a little bit flawed. The thing about it is, obviously, you just got to become the best wrestler you can and work your freaking tail off. And the other crappy part is it's one tournament.
Right.
It's a 1-2 day tournament to figure it out. So it's like, you just got to stay focused on just getting better, like I said, because if you start doing that, then you're gonna go, well, I'll probably end up losing one match.
Yeah.
Or a ref will make a terrible call and I'll lose it, and then I'll never be able to become an Olympian.
Right.
It's like there's a lot of things
think like that.
Yeah, because it will happen. It could.
Yeah, absolutely.
But then it could be the other way, that you get a good call and you beat somebody that maybe you weren't supposed to beat.
Yeah, that's a big thing we talk about, is like with this podcast, that we want to monetize it.
Yeah.
Why can't we be like Joe Rogan? Who is stopping us from creating a podcast that makes enough money to support us, and we can start a company?
100%.
What's stopping anyone from opening up a restaurant? What's stopping you from becoming an Olympian?
Yeah.
You know, it's possible. That's all that matters.
And this is what I always say, is like, you will never regret chasing it.
Exactly.
You know, like, you can be broke as hell and spend the next 5 years trying to chase this podcast, loving it, talking to cool people, doing cool stuff, and make not that much money. In 5 years from now, and then you go, okay, maybe it's time to throw in the towel.
Right.
And you go, but you don't regret it.
Well, that's like when
you are so thankful that you did it.
We started that blog, and we were broke college kids, and we spent but $600-$700, and we were talking about it in one of the last episodes. I don't regret it at all.
Nope.
I am very thankful for that failure.
100%.
It's just steps to your purpose, like figuring out what your sole purpose is. And right now we're in the middle. Like, I've always known I was different, and I've always known that I didn't go through the things that I did for nothing, and that I have a purpose. And
You're on the fringe.
I just, recently, it was probably the last year of college, I realized my purpose is to make a difference. And I didn't know if it was the world, or if it was in Laramie, Wyoming, or if it was at a sorority. I didn't know what it was, but I never understood people when they would say, oh, God, like, I felt the calling. He put it in my heart. I was always like, but how do you know?
Yeah.
But I don't get it. But with this podcast, I understand.
And this might not be what it is that you end up doing.
No,
but like you said, it's a stepping stone.
I don't think there's ever going to be a final stepping stone, because I never wouldn't want there to be a final stepping stone.
Yeah.
But this could be, you know, where it begins, where my purpose really begins. Or this could be, I'm getting a little bit closer to that purpose.
Exactly.
I don't know, but I don't care. Like, I love it and I feel it. Like, I know with every inch of my body that this is what I'm meant to be doing right now.
You have to love the process.
Yeah, and I have
Absolutely.
I have this like this thing that I've kind of been manifesting in my head, and it's the idea that like life is just a whole bunch of waves, all right? And there's this thing that like when you're surfing, don't confuse yourself with the wave. So I have to get out in the ocean. I have to paddle. I have to balance things. I have to work hard to get on that wave. But that wave's gonna go. And it's either going to take me or it's not. And I have to work to get on it.
Yeah.
And then it's going to end. And a lot of people, they get at the end of that wave and they get on the beach and they sit out.
Yeah.
But no, me, I'm going to be out there in the freaking ocean trying to catch the next wave.
Yeah.
And working hard to get there and doing things correctly to catch the other wave. And
I got to grab this quote from my book real quick.
yeah, for me, it's like... It's not like this idea that there's this endless wave.
Yeah.
It's just the endless summer
of
trying to catch the wave.
What this is, you know, you the comfort zone, the perceived boundaries, the unknown, the known, comfort zone. Like, you're constant, like, it never ends. You
100%.
know, you're always going to be jumping into that next unknown, and you're going to feel like you're on top, and you are going to be on top, but then there's more, and that's the way it should be. You wouldn't
crash and burn. And
no, because
whatever.
nothing feels as good as trying something. You know what I mean? Like, I'm scared, I'm nervous, but I'm going to do this. Like, my fears and my insecurities and my struggles, I get so nervous to put them out there. And I don't do it for attention. I do it to minimize them, to squash them.
And to hold yourself accountable.
Yeah, because...
with other people holding you accountable.
Will Smith's saying, like, all the best things in life live on the opposite side of fear.
Right. And, you know, what's really interesting to me is if you don't keep riding that wave, if you don't keep going out there trying to get on that wave, when opportunity does knock, you're not going to be there to answer the door.
Or I don't have my surfboard.
Exactly.
I don't have anything.
And that's this quote right here. If your curiosity ever leads you to a place where society eventually wants to go, you'll get paid extremely well.
Yep.
And I don't know. I'm kind of a nerd and a gamer. I'm sure you know Ninja and Fortnite and all that. And it's, you know, when Ninja came up and Fortnite was coming up at the same time, he took that opportunity, and that's how he's one of the wealthiest content creators ever.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with Mark Cuban. He started a sports broadcasting website when the internet was becoming really popular. And when those two things coincide, two elements where society wants to go, that's how you get these multi-billionaires. But if you don't keep riding that wave and going out in the ocean, you're not going to be there when opportunity presents itself. Yeah.
You're just a wave.
That opportunity is just going to go by.
It's only beautiful when you're riding that damn
Exactly.
wave.
And that adrenaline just is addictive.
Yeah. No matter what you're doing.
And if that's the thing that I'm addicted to, is putting my insecurities and fears out to squash them and diminish them, you know, every time you talk about them, every time somebody asks you a question about them. I've never been shy to talk about things that happen with my dad. I've never been shy to talk about my struggles with depression and eating, all those kinds of things. And I'm nowhere near an expert. We say that every single podcast probably. We're like, we're not experts. Like,
we're all idiots.
We're just sharing our story.
Yeah, but
you know?
it feels so good to just release it.
Yeah.
It literally is just, I feel it come off my shoulders.
And,
Absolutely.
And the cool part is, like you said, that adrenaline, it won't ever go away. So it's like, I always say this with social media, where people are like, oh my God, you have 40,000 followers. I go, yeah, but it's the exact same as when I had 1,000 followers. When I post a picture, if it got 200 likes, it would make me excited.
Yeah.
If it only got 100, I'd be like, oh, that was kind of a bad post. Like, was that, my caption sucked?
Yeah.
Picture sucked? Whatever. Now it's at like 6,000 likes. But then there's been a time where like I post a picture and it only gets 2,000 likes. It's the exact same thing.
It's all relevant.
So it's all, like, we're always insecure. We're always worried about what's happening. But like you say, like, you just have to keep putting yourself out there.
Right.
And it's
the risk is always worth the reward.
Yeah.
Even if there is no reward.
And like, what is
taking that
risk?
risk
What is
is
like
worth
somebody
it.
gonna say? Like, oh, you guys are idiots for starting a podcast. You're like,
okay, well,
if somebody said that, like, they just, who cares? Like, you're not in my life anymore.
I don't see you starting a podcast.
We are
like,
chasing our. You can never fault someone for chasing their dreams.
No.
Ever.
No.
As long as their dreams aren't something wild that affects other people. You know?
Yeah, like negative things.
Yeah, like if their dream is to be a part of ISIS, you don't really support that.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Not everybody has the same seat at the table, man.
Right.
No.
You don't.
Exactly. Well, I think that's all we have.
Yeah.
Once again, we want to thank you for coming on our podcast, and I think what you have experienced, you have a lot of knowledge to provide, and I think that a lot of will come from this podcast, and people will be affected and be inspired.
Yeah, well, thank you.
So we appreciate you having on.
I think it's really cool that you guys are doing this as well.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
There's like a male, a female,
right.
having completely different lives, having two people on a podcast, putting in different things. It's different. It's cool, and I appreciate it. I really do.
Yeah,
Thank
I was gonna bring you guys some baked goods or something. Like as a joke.
I was hoping you bring us some B Meredith merchandise.
I know.
He's our friend. We're going to pay.
You're
for
right.
it.
You're right. You're right.
It's different though because I had to get on the podcast.
You got to support.
I was gonna like bake some goods as like a joke and just like bring it in, but I didn't have time.
That's okay.
No worries.
That's okay.
But once again, thank you for being on, and thank you all for watching, and we'll see you on the next episode. Thanks.
Thanks.